give me the signal and tell me where to stand, like which camera to look at, because I don't like a side view. So if I look here. Yes? No?
Feel more normal if I had a snake on my arm or something.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to our new formation season here in 2022. And so we're kicking off today with a presentation from Maggie Johnston, Executive Director of Wild Alabama. Many of you probably know her from her past role at Camp McDowell here in the Diocese of Alabama. And so I'm going to hand it off actually to our senior warden, Michael Yancey, who is on the board of Wild Alabama, and he will introduce Maggie and our conversation today.
Thanks, Becky. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. And Happy New Year, yeah. What a great crowd for this time of year in the midst of the pandemic. Thanks for coming. Maggie wanted me to tell you a little bit about how I got involved with Wild Alabama, and then she's going to tell you all about Wild Alabama. Some of you may already know a lot of what she will say. Some of you may even have roots that extend back to Wild South and maybe even the Bankhead Monitor, which are sort of the beginnings of Wild Alabama, but Maggie's going to tell you all about that too. A couple of years ago, when I started becoming more interested in the care of creation and being involved here at St. Stephen's on that committee, I got interested in, or I became reinterested in trying to get back out into the forest and do hiking and camping and things I did as a younger man and boy growing up in North Alabama, and always in my memory was going to the Cheaha Wilderness, where a friend of mine and I started hiking and camping in high school, and we would go in, and if you've ever been to the Cheaha, you probably know about the big tree, which is the key feature, one of the key features. And so we made the pilgrimage to the big tree, and being in the canyons and under the hemlock trees has always stuck in my mind and held a special place in my heart, and that's the Cheaha. And so I've been thinking, okay, I've got to get back to that. That was a really important place for me, both in my life and geographically speaking. So I started making plans to do that. Then the pandemic hit, and I thought, well, it would be great to go to the woods during the pandemic, but I was sitting around in quarantine working, and I got a phone call, and it was Mark first, whom you all probably know, and I, of course, knew Mark and Maggie through camp and through working with them on other projects. And I learned that Maggie was finishing up at Camp McDowell and had taken the new position as the executive director of Wild Alabama, and she was putting together a board because we were at that time reforming the organization. So while we've been around for a long time, this iteration of the organization is really just over a year old. And so we're a brand new startup nonprofit organization, so to speak, and I happily accepted the invitation to join the board because I literally was sitting thinking about the Cheaha Wilderness when I got the phone call. So I jumped at the chance, and I've been doing that ever since. We've laid all the groundwork. We've put together a great board. Maggie is doing a wonderful job as executive director, and she's going to come and tell you all about the organization now.
Yay, Michael. I've got this. I don't think I need that one. Thank you. I don't know whether you guys can hear me okay. I'm usually loud, but this might make me really too loud. But let's see if I can get this little slideshow thing going. I think it's already on. So Wild Alabama. Most of you probably know me from some part of my life, and I'm not supposed to go too far away from the perimeters here, sorry. But I wanted to take you through a little bit of who I am, and then who the organization is, and we'll kind of go from there, all right? Who are we? Well, you probably know me, but before I was in the role that you know, I taught at the School for the Deaf. I always feel like I should be signing when I say that. I taught science primarily at ASD in Talladega, and then became wonderfully in love with this man and this place called Camp McDowell. And let's see, we live on a farm, a lot of acreage, and a house that Mark built. That's Mark Johnston, by the way, my husband. And you've probably heard him say he had the best job in the world, and he did. We did. Together, we worked at Camp McDowell, where I was the director of the educational programs. Helped to start the farm school, ran the environmental center, and then started Magnolia Nature School, Alabama's first nature-based preschool. So quickly, I've worked in Haiti with CJ. Where's CJ sitting? There you are. We worked together in Haiti for about 10 years. And then I got the opportunity to do this new job with Wild Alabama. This was our beginning crew when we first started Wild Alabama about a little over a year ago. And it has grown. Christine, back here, wave, Christine. She is one of our staff now as well and lives here in Birmingham, so she got to come today. Thank you. Now, the pop quiz. Now, the people that are out there in YouTube land probably don't have an opportunity to respond, but you guys do, all right? What's the highest mountain in Alabama? I saw a hand go up. Do you know? Cheaha Mountain. Good. All right, how about the second one? If you know the answer, raise your hand, all right? And that way I'll know how many people do. What was the first wilderness area in Alabama? There are 3, and you'll learn more about them later, but the very first one in Alabama was the Sipsey Wilderness. That's a photo from there. All right. I know it probably at least one of you in the room knows the answer to this, Jim. But what are these 3 endangered species? Anyone?
The exact species?
Well, get close. One is a salamander, particularly the black warrior water dog. And that's a turtle, obviously. Flattened musk turtle. Those 2 live primarily in the Black Warrior water basin. And then, anybody know what this little guy is? It's a what? It is a darter. It's a rush darter. That little guy is endemic to only about 5 places in the world. And one of them is right down the road from us on some property that Mark and I own, which is really special. So these are just examples of some of the really special things we have in this state that a lot of us never get the opportunity to see. And they're right in our wild places of Alabama. Now, we have a mission statement to inspire people to enjoy, value, and protect. The protect is really important, but it won't happen without the enjoy and value the wild places of our state. Let me give you a real brief history because it's important. 30 years ago, actually October of 2021 was our 30th anniversary. It started as the Bankhead Monitor. Did any of y'all ever hear of the Bankhead Monitor? No? Well, it was focused primarily in the Bankhead National Forest, Sipsey Wilderness, and it was started by a group of indigenous people, mostly with Native American roots, who were seeing a terrible disaster happening in the forest there by the management of the forest doing a lot of clear cutting. I'll show you a photo of some of that in a second. And then it grew into a statewide organization. And then in 2004, it moved to North Carolina. Well, it moved around 2007, but it merged with an organization in North Carolina, and the headquarters moved to Asheville. And what happened to Alabama was it sort of fell on the background. So just this past year, we are returning to Alabama, and we say restructured Wild South, but in a way we sort of seceded from Wild South, and we became our own organization, and we're really proud of what we're doing now. We work primarily in the national forests of Alabama, and particularly in the Bankhead and Talladega. Sipsey Wilderness is in the Bankhead. Cheaha and Duggar Mountain Wilderness are two wilderness areas that are in Talladega. If you guys haven't experienced the true wilderness areas, you need to get out and do that in some way, shape, form, or fashion. We also have an agreement with the Forest Service that we will help to maintain the whole Pinhoti Trail. It's about 138 miles through the Talladega National Forest. So we're pretty big. We have a small staff. There's only 4 full-time and 2 part-time. But we are primarily volunteer. We have around 150 volunteers. Some of them are like every week they're out there working, and some people come once every 6 months and do a day of work. This is the Talladega National Forest. I don't know if this little thing has a pointer, but if you notice there's a sort of lime green area in the top left corner, that's the Sipsey Wilderness. And a really cool thing, the word Sipsey means the same as a tulip poplar, and the shape of the Sipsey, at least until we help it to grow, I hope we do, is sort of the shape of the leaf of a tulip poplar. Just a novel thing. Over that 30-year period, Wild Alabama has helped it to go from a tree farm where clear cuts like this were all over the Bankhead to healthy, intact ecosystems like this. The Bankhead is known as the land of 1,000 waterfalls, and that's probably not far off. The Sipsey Fork, not Sipsey River, which is over near Tuscaloosa, but Sipsey Fork of the Black Warrior River is the only wild and scenic river in our state. And it's a lot to be proud of. We do water monitoring in conjunction with the Alabama Water Watch organization out of Auburn to help protect that area and make sure that it stays as pristine as it is.
Maggie, what does that mean,
Wild and scenic rivers? Good question. There are designations of, like, you have to prove that they are in a pristine area, and they're designated national wild and scenic rivers. And you have to, it's quite a lot of proof that has to be given before it's designated as that. And right now, there is a push to try to get Little River designated, but it has not been yet. So the Sipsey is the only one in our state. Then we fly over to the other side of the state, on the eastern side of the state, where the Talladega National Forest is. How many of you guys have ever been up to Cheaha? Excellent. Have you ever hiked a little bit on any of the trails up there? It's a beautiful place, and there are places you can go and not have to hike very far to get views. Well, you can see a lot of waterfalls there too. Oh, well, I was going to show a view, but it's next. One of the things Wild Alabama is doing right now in our protecting and keeping clear the Pinhoti Trail, or trying to, is we're reblazing it. Do you know what a blaze is? It's a little mark on a tree to help you find your way. And we are about 2/3 of the way through. So if any of you are like inspired to go out and paint some blazes on trees, it's a really fun thing to do. They were in the snow the other day doing it. This was just this past week. Lots of these amazing views. This is McDill's Point. Anybody ever hiked out to McDill's Point? If you start at Cheaha, at the main trailhead, and hike, what is it, maybe 2 miles, 2.5. It's not that far. It's a little strenuous, but that's the views that you get. Now, I'm going to flip through these, but I wanted you to see all the different programming work that we do as a part of Wild Alabama. It's amazing that our little small staff can get this done. I just am blown away every day when they, we have like weekly meetings and they'll say, oh, well, I was doing this and this and this and this and this. I don't ask them to do these things. Our staff are that passionate. So here we go, outreach. A quote that I love. I'll read it for those who are YouTubing and maybe not be able to see that. In the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. Think about it. So, we get kids out. At all my years at Camp McDowell, that's what I did. Every year we would have 10 to 12,000 kids who came and stayed at camp, and I got them outside. Now, I had about 30 staff, 40 staff that helped me do that, but that was my passion. So we still get to do that. And we do it on things we call Wild Wednesdays, where we take families out every week during the summer, and at least once a month during the rest of the year. There's a lot of fun to be had out there. Anyone know where that is? It's in the Sipsey. Well, it's in the Bankhead. Sorry? It's called Kenlock Shelter. And Kenlock Shelter is it has a lot of history. Native Americans actually painted petroglyphs on the rocks and carved them 4,000 to 8,000 years ago. They've been dated. This is an amazing place, and unfortunately it's become popular, so sometimes we go in there and we find trash or we find things that are not a symbol of being taken care of. This young man on the right is Joe Jenkins. He graduated with his master's from Auburn and works for Auburn now in researching those 2 endangered species, the flattened musk turtle and the black warrior water dog. But he also works with us. He was a volunteer for years, and now he's doing sort of volunteer, gets a little bit of pay. But when we take kids out, sometimes he'll go along, and he'll catch some of these critters and let the kids actually help to measure them and document. Now he's doing the touching of the endangered species because he is certified and licensed to do that. But they're helping to document. Now, how powerful is that for those kids to think that they're a part of real science? This is in the Sipsey with a family group. Last year, because of, the COVID monster, we were unable to get kids out, but we did YouTubes. That's Carlos and Anthony. They're 2 amazing young men who live at Camp McDowell, and they would go with us as the kids we could find and take out. This is some of our hikes that we lead up on the Pinhoti. We do Pinhoti Challenge on Saturdays once a month, and then we also do Trail Tuesdays, which is getting people out during the week. And volunteers lead those, sometimes our board members, sometimes our staff. This is one of the waterfalls at Cheaha, another one, and yet another. Cheaha's got a lot of waterfalls too. Not so much on the mountain, but around the base. That's Jim Lacefield. Do any of y'all know Jim? He has led geology hikes for us for years, and we have other people who come in, and I might recruit some of y'all sometime to do some of these. that are specifically geared for people who are interested in specific things. That's the big tree that Michael was talking about, the big tulip poplar tree that's in the Cheaha Wilderness. It's now a pretty good strenuous hike to get to. You can't drive very close, which is a good thing because it too needs protection. That's Janice on the left. Janice Barrett is our Outreach and Education Director and is amazing at getting people connected to the national wild places. Helping Hands, this is where you can get involved. If you're interested in going out and doing something with your own hands, you might want to learn to do crosscut sawing. Michael Yancey did, and he's gone on several of our crosscut saw days. Can you make it sing yet? They say that once you really get good at it, the saw will start to sing. I don't have that ability yet. We do certification. We're the only organization, I think, in the state who certifies people to do this. You can't just go out with a crosscut saw by yourself. And in the wilderness area, you can't take a chainsaw, period. So all three of those wilderness areas require that you know crosscut sawing if you're going to get a tree out of the trail. We even let kids get involved on things like campsite restoration. Lots of roadside cleanups happen along through the National Forest roads.
Hey, Maggie, why are trees being cut?
Oh, well, because they block the trail.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't go out and cut just anything, but we are given permission. And in a wilderness area, you can't fell a tree. You can cut a tree that has fallen off the trail, but only
What
to...
do you do with that tree?
Nothing. You have to just push the part you cut out aside and return it to nature. Glade restoration is something that I didn't know a whole lot about, but there are wild glades. Make sure I'm not running over. There are wild glades scattered all around the national forests. Some are sandstone and some are limestone. And they're a population of plants that can live probably nowhere else. And you think, well, why would you have to restore it? Well, forestry practices in the past caused erosion to come in and bring soil over those glades that shouldn't have been there. So we have to go in and move some of the trees and things that become invasive in the area. Pulling privet. How many of you have a fight with privet around your place? We do too, only ours is on many, many acres. So we have regular privet pulling days. We actually had one scheduled last weekend that we didn't get to go because of weather. But most of the time, you can get out and work on that. We have trail days up on the Talladega. This is up on the Pinhoti. The man standing to the far right is Hayward Warren, and he's on our board as well. He's an engineer here in Birmingham who gets out every weekend working on the Pinhoti. I don't think he misses a weekend, hardly ever. We have a big annual picnic and invite all the volunteers. It's a lot of fun. Forest Watch is a very crucial part of what we do. We partner with the National Forest, and they know that we are their friends and their partner, but we also keep an eye on their practices, and that's understood. So we go out with them. This is the district ranger, Andy Scott, at the top photo, and this is a group of both some of the Forest Service employees as well as the Wild Alabama employees, and we go out and monitor when they're doing a clear cut or any kind of work. We make sure that it's following the right procedure, and occasionally we find some that aren't. And so I just turned in a letter the other day to concern about some issues that were going on. So Forest Watch is important. We are a conservation organization who want to protect the wild places. We do citizen science. You can get involved there. We did and we're not done yet, but for this fall, we're done. We did an acorn collection where we had 12,000 acorns, viable acorns. You have to float them, and if they come to the top, they're not viable, but if they sink, they are. And so we had 12,000 collected by students, by Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, by groups who were homeschool groups, and it was so much fun to get those students out collecting acorns, and only white oaks. But there's a 22-acre piece of property in the Bankhead that was planted in loblolly pine back when the practice was cut everything native and plant loblollies. And just recently, they harvested those loblollies. And thanks to people like us, they're going to replant in white oaks. Do I get a cheer? Yay! That is amazing to see them reach out to us, the Forest Service reach out to Wild Alabama and say, we want to plant 22 acres in white oaks. Can you help us collect acorns? So we did. And then we're doing a hemlock. Michael, I heard you mention hemlocks. And how many of you know what an Eastern hemlock looks like? Okay? It's a magical tree. They are Ice Age remnants. Back in the day, when the ice covered most of North America, it did not cover Alabama. And places like the Bankhead were able to sustain a population of hemlocks that have now been able to repopulate North America. Unfortunately, there's this little critter called the woolly adelgid. I don't have a picture of him, but it's a tiny little insect that is killing all the hemlocks in North America. It has not yet gotten to the Bankhead, as my mom used to say, knock on wood. It is in Alabama. It's in the very northeastern corner of Alabama. So we are training people to identify the woolly adelgid, first to know what a hemlock looks like, and then to know how to identify when it's been infected. And then we're getting trained by the Georgia people who have started a program called Save the Georgia Hemlocks. And we're going to be teaching people to go out and preserve these hemlock trees that are being infested, or potentially will be. It's a very powerful citizen science project that we're taking part in. The Bankhead alone has over 300 miles of canyons with hemlocks in it, in that one national forest. Here's some of our volunteer wilderness rangers. We have a program called Volunteer Wilderness Rangers. And this is where we train people not just to do the crosscut sawing, although most of them are certified in that as well, but to go out and educate people in the wilderness. They'll hike out in pairs and talk to people along the way, explain what a wilderness is, explain the significance of it and the characteristics of it, and do a lot of education. These are just some photos. This is also, they do a lot of wilderness rescue assistance as well. Some of our wonderful wilderness rangers. And the guy in the middle, Wayne Bailey, just started his northbound hike of the Appalachian Chain last Monday. He started at Flag Mountain, if you're familiar with Flag Mountain, which is a state-owned place that was built like Cheaha back in the 30s by the Civilian Conservation Corps, down near Sylacauga, Weogufka. But he started there and is headed to Maine, and he's 74, so go Wayne. We have a Forest Ambassador program. See, it just keeps going. This is another opportunity for people who want to volunteer, who have some knowledge about the Cheaha area or the Sipsey area, and they want to give back. We have a little table and pavilion, if you will, set up at the trailheads on busy weekends where we, I don't have any more Wilderness Ranger pictures. Forest Ambassador pictures. We answer questions. We give out little paper maps. It's an opportunity to educate people before they go into those areas. We have several grants. a lot of grants right now, but this is one that we have from the National River Network. And we are doing work privet pulling around the river, teaching Leave No Trace to teachers who can go out and teach it to their children. In fact, we have a trainer for Leave No Trace training every single month this next year. And lots of other good stuff, picking up trash. I don't know if you can see in this picture with Janice, you really can't see it in this picture, but right down here in the bottom, yeah, there's a big rattlesnake down there. She was trying to be really careful, though. We have another Wilderness Stewardship Alliance grant where we're working on, the one we're working under right now is primarily funding our work in the Talladega National Forest. This is a lot of good stuff we have coming up in the next few months. If you want to go out and help blaze, if you want to do some volunteer days, you just want to go on a hike. And we can gear the hikes for, let's say, like we have a ladies group from Jasper who sometimes calls and says, we want to take a hike to a particular waterfall. So we'll go with you at your speed, and we'll help you choose a place that's geared for the kind of, whether you want to go stomping with your poles, or you want to climb a mountain, or you want to just take a leisurely hike. If you haven't checked out Present Tense Podcast, one of our board members, Ann Bailey, that's her, she does a podcast routinely, but she did one called The Fight for Alabama's Last Wild Places, and it talks about the formation of wild Alabama. I wanted to say a quick tribute to two people. There are so many I could thank who are mentors and heroes of mine, but these are some that you might have known or heard of. One was Big Dave Holloway. Any of y'all remember meeting Big Dave? You know, he was the one at Camp McDowell who was always like, awesome, cool beans, man. And he had an owl on his arm most of the time. He passed away about 1.5 years ago or so now, and we all miss him, but I just wanted to say thanks, and I appreciate him. And then Dr. E.O. Wilson passed away just recently, and he was not only a hero, but someone that let's put it this way, on the dashboard of my car, I have a little rubber ant, because he was known as the Ant Man, and it's just a reminder to me to think like E.O. Keep thinking, keep asking questions. The night that picture was taken, we were doing, it was a symposium at the University of Alabama, and we were doing a tribute to him. And Jimmy Stiles, a friend of mine who studies the gopher tortoise and indigo snake down in Cheaha National Forest in South Alabama, brought a gopher tortoise and an indigo snake. Well, Dr. Wilson had never held an indigo snake before. His face was just like any 5-year-old's. He just lit up, and I mean, I was pretty excited about holding the snake too, but I wish I'd gotten a picture when he was handed that indigo snake, because they are big, black, shiny, beautiful snakes, and they kind of wrap around you, and he was just like a kid. But anyway, if you don't know who he is, look him up. And we lost him 2 weeks ago. So that's it. I don't know. I hope I didn't run over. And if you've got a fancy smartphone, you can try that. I'm so proud of myself for learning how to do that. The QR code, I think you could probably do it on YouTube even, but you can like zoom in on it, and it will take you to our website. And from there, you can hit donate. Or you can hit sign up to volunteer. I brought some of my business cards if you want one of those. And these are letters that we send out at the end of the year. If you did not get one and you want one, it tells some of the accomplishments of this past year. And it also just tells a story that I think is kind of fun. But you're welcome to those. And do I have time to read one quote? If I don't, you can cut off the... All right, this is by Barbara Ward. We all understand that the life systems of this planet are interrelated, that our human future depends on the well-being of the forest and the salt marsh. We know that human activity in the production of goods and services can damage and destroy the environment on which we and our children depend. We know all these intellectually, and we fear together the misuse of the power we have now at our collective fingertips through our amazing technology. Think about it. Yes, sir. Do you have a question? Oh. Yes, sir.
Hi, Maggie. Jim McCoy.
Hey, Jim.
You just gave me this great idea. You mentioned Cheaha Wilson, your friend who last week ago. You mentioned the Appalachian Trail. And I've always wondered, coming from California 35 years ago to Alabama, that why is it that the Appalachian Trail doesn't end in Alabama officially, publicly, nationally, internationally? What an opportunity coming up with the world coming to Birmingham to make an announcement that actually it does end in Alabama. Maybe, this is something that Mitch Reed and I have talked about. He's the director of the Nature Conservancy. Your organization would be perfect for this as well, to get involved in this announcement. And how do you bring people to the end of the trail? Because apparently Alabama's name is not enough to do it by itself. What if there was a memorial to our friend Ed Wilson at the end of the trail? And the thing when you finish the Appalachian Trail is you have that picture of you and the E.O. Wilson Memorial, who is Alabama's most famous scientist and the world's perhaps most famous scientist. And it just occurred to me that those are great ingredients to think about.
They are.
I don't know the politics.
There's a lot of politics.
There's probably a lot of politics, but I don't see why Alabama doesn't stand up and claim the end of the Appalachian Trail. I mean, it is
we do.
Scientifically a fact
Yes.
that the Appalachians end in Alabama, not in Georgia. Nothing against Georgia, but
We love Georgia too, but
what a great opportunity to make people recognize that we have the greatest biodiversity in the country.
we need to talk
Yeah.
later for sure. That's a great comment because I've been on a lot of Zoom calls lately about that topic.
We don't love Georgia this week.
Oh, no. Not until after Monday night. Anyone else got a question? Christine?
I hear a lot of programming that Wild Alabama does with
Wait on that just a sec.
youth and families and a ton of opportunities. Does this cost anything for them?
That is such a good question. It does not. We
Free
don't charge.
programming?
Everything's free because we are totally dependent on donations and grants. And I write a lot of grants, but not enough to cover all the things that we do. So thank you for bringing that up. Now you know why I hired her as the office manager. And yes, ma'am.
There are so many important places in Alabama that need the same kind of people, I guess, being responsible for them. Is there some plan for you to maybe move into other places like Paint Rock? And I mean, I just don't know who's doing the Walls of Jericho.
Right. Well, Nature Conservancy is in the Walls of Jericho. We have really good friends, Bill Finch and Beth Maynard Finch, who are doing some amazing research in Paint Rock Valley. We try to focus on public lands that are national public lands, but not necessarily forever. Right now, that's what we're doing, and right now we're focusing on those two. But we've only been in existence, rebirthed for a year. Not really a year entirely yet, because our nonprofit status didn't start until March. But my plan is, if I hang in here long enough, is I would love to see the Conecuh National Forest involved. Conecuh is amazing and special. Have y'all ever been down there to Longleaf Pine area? Its biodiversity is amazing. And you mostly just see pine trees, but when you get down on ground level, it's got so much So yeah, I would love to expand. Right now, I'm trying to fund what we've got and then grow. But yes, my husband told me when I took this job, he said, you know, there's two ways it can be done. You can either maintain status quo, or you can do it Maggie's way, and I know what's going to happen.
You know, to pick up on biodiversity, as Dr. mentioned, during the pandemic, Maggie put together a three-part series with Dr. Scott Duncan of Birmingham Southern, and it's on the website. You can go to it, and it's a wonderful presentation that really educates you on how wonderful the biodiversity in Alabama is and how we're number 4 in the country, and how that's measured and why. And then he talks about why it is, and and they're all 1 hour long, so it's really easy to listen to. And he does a great
And he
presentation.
also, Jim, brings in the third of the series, of course, why are we in danger of losing it? And Jim and I are working on a thing coming up next month, EEAA, Environmental Education Association of Alabama, and I'm reading that book that you sent me, and it's scary. It's about why our country, the education system, is not teaching climate change. And it's just almost demoralizing. You know, it's like, no, we got to change this. So we're working on a panel discussion that's going to at least affect a few people, I hope. So, yes, sir.
I'm saying just really close. If I think connected to your mission, if you've got a few hours, Chris or CJ would love to plug you into pulling Privet gear and reinventing
So
it's
true.
The same thing. What you're talking, I didn't realize until I think Lanier gave me a book, Lanier Larry, that like I didn't realize that bugs cannot process these ornamental plants that are introduced into our area. So you lose the bugs, which then means everything that eats the bugs and survives off of that. And so just how important it is to have native plants. And you're doing, I mean, you're on a much larger scale, but that same project's taking place right here at St. Stephen's.
Thank you for doing that. Yes, thank you, CJ, and whoever else is helping. Yes. It's just invasive plants. I mean, there's so many of them. Kudzu, privet, on and on and on. But we need to do the best we can. And when you eradicate, we've got some places in the Cheaha Wilderness where we have eradicated a place, say, half the size of this room with privet. And you come back even just a year later and you will see jewelweed coming up and all these native plants and flowers that are supposed to be there.
Get your anger out, and you can fight with some privet.
Yes. Privet is powerful stuff. I'll find it. I love that too. In fact, Camp McDowell used to have that on the back of, I don't know if it was on our T-shirts or our teacher planning packet, but we used that quote. There. I'm not sure who Baba Diam is. A single, I can't pronounce it, Lee's ecologist, but they were very smart. Any other questions or comments?
I think that bell means our time is up, but thank you very much, Maggie, for sharing with us. If you all have questions, Maggie may stick around for a few minutes after for those who aren't headed immediately to 11:15 service, or check out their website and come pull Privet with us at St. Stephen's. Talk to Chris or Lanier or Lois or CJ, and they can get you out there.